Over 10 years ago, McKinsey senior partner Aaron De Smet was working so hard and traveling so much, he lost sight of dire circumstances at home.
It took me a while to realize that my wife at the time had a severe addiction, and my family was not okay.
In order to deal with the crisis, he reacted in a way that was familiar to him.
My reaction to problems that I feel passionate about is to tackle them head on, to fix them, to control.
But trying to wield control over the situation didn't help.
The answer I came up with, I will say, did not help my family. I had to learn to truly change some pretty fundamental things about myself, and eventually I had to learn to become a single father to two fairly traumatized girls who, grew up with a very difficult situation where I initially did not show up in a way that was helpful to them.
Aaron's self-reflection motivated him to write the book Deliberate Calm with McKinsey Kraut and Jacqueline Brassey, a senior knowledge expert at McKinsey. This book aims to help leaders resist knee-jerk reactions to unanticipated events, which are happening more and more. This is a special episode of the McKinsey podcast where we help you make sense out of our world's toughest business challenges. I'm your host for today, Roberta Fusaro. Here's Jackie, who says Deliberate Calm
is really a set of skills that helps leaders make the best decisions in the moment, even when it's tough.
We're constantly faced with new levels of uncertainty, volatility, and change is now the norm. I have grown up in a world where the way we think about how to handle a crisis is, I would say, outdated. So this book helps leaders understand how to change their relationship with change, how to change their relationship with uncertainty, not to shy away from it, but also a better toolkit for dealing with it on an ongoing basis.
Aaron says his thinking on crisis response was influenced by Harvard professor Dutch Leonard, who says it's important to understand not all crises are created equal.
One of the things he mentioned at the time was there's a difference between what he called a routine emergency and a crisis of uncertainty. And a routine emergency could be a building is on fire and firefighters are in a very difficult situation with respect to the nature of the fire and lives at stake. However, if it is a fairly routine fire, there's nothing special about it other than the size and magnitude and stakes, the firefighters have likely trained for an event like this.
But in a crisis of uncertainty, Aaron says you can't fall back on what you know.
I often want to react based on what I've already learned, not what I need to learn. Or I just shut down and freak out. If you are in an uncertain situation, the most important thing you can do is calm down. Take a breath. Take stock. Is the thing I'm about to do really the right thing to do? And in many cases, the answer is no. If you are in truly an uncertain environment, if you're in new territory, the thing you would normally do might not be the right thing.
And if resisting the temptation to react as usual is hard, this is where you can be
very cognizant of a protection, status quo, reactive mindset where I just fall back on what I know versus a learning mindset where I have to say, this is an opportunity for me to learn something and evolve and adapt.
Jacqueline Brassey agrees. She says in order to evolve or adapt, people have to start from a place of awareness.
Knowing that there is a process going on for ourselves in our brain and body, and there is science behind it. We have a protocol in the book that we describe very simple steps where for 4 weeks you can actually start observing the moments that you feel triggered by a stressful situation. And then we have a couple of structured questions, that to help you understand what is actually going on, what goes on in your brain, what are your thoughts, what goes on in your body, what do you feel. It's very important that we also learn to connect with our body because the brain is not just above the brainstem and disconnected with the rest of the body. We emphasize that also in our book. It's holistic, right?
So once you get good at objectively understanding your feelings, Jackie says your next step is to note what you want to do in response to those emotions.
Are we moving towards something? Are we moving away from something? Are we trying to face the challenge that is ahead of us?
To give an example of deliberate calm, both in action and not in action, Jackie told a story about one business leader. His company was undergoing a large and high-profile transformation. Layoffs were on the horizon, and everyone was stressed. The leader,
he felt very responsible, and he felt like he needed to make this a huge success, but also the time pressure was high.
He wanted to move very fast with no discussion, which created friction within the team. Sound familiar?
It is a typical example that you see in many organizational settings. This leader completely became so emotional, but also he went from overdrive to extreme overdrive and started shouting. So actually the opposite of deliberate calm. Another leader in the room went up and started to have a conversation with him. But there was a difference in hierarchy. And what you also see often, when there's stress, when there's shouting and difference in hierarchy, then this even puts more pressure on the person. And he really showed deliberate calm in action. He really stayed very calm, had an open posture, and asked very calm questions and open questions to understand the situation. And even though actually at some point Leader A started to attack him personally, it did not bother him. And eventually he calmed down the situation, opened up basically the conversation, and it became a dialogue instead of a back and forth and a more of a protection conversation, a fighting conversation.
How hard is it to learn to be deliberately calm?
Change is hard. And if you think about how many organizations drive change, they often start with, what's the sense of urgency? What's the case for change to get people's attention and convince them that you need to pay attention to this and you need to commit to doing something different? Because even small things are hard to change once you have a built-in habit.
Habits can be broken if people develop what Aaron and Jackie call dual awareness.
Dual awareness is the important connection between self-awareness and situational awareness. So the situation, what is the situation and what does it call for? What is it asking of me? What are the characteristics of the situation? Is this a known situation with known solutions where the thing I would normally tend to do is the right thing? Or is this a new and different situation where my normal habits or tendencies or reactions might not be of service? Which comes back to self-awareness. What are my normal habits and tendencies? What are the things I'm good at or not good at? What are my habitual reactions? And is that appropriate? Navigating conditions of great volatility and great uncertainty almost always require a higher degree of dual awareness.
A good example of what can happen when dual awareness is missing comes from the Netherlands. Jackie says the Minister of Health there showed situational awareness, but not personal awareness during the COVID-19 pandemic.
This minister was so focused on really serving the country and bringing all that was needed to the table that he forgot actually to take care of himself. He forgot he needed also recovery and rest. A result of it was that he basically fainted on national television a couple of weeks into the crisis. When we talk about dual awareness, it is not only the focus of what is happening currently and what needs our focus and attention, and what type of focus and attention is that. It is also always in communication with what's going on for me and how can I take care of myself to sustainably serve in this situation.
And dual awareness is not just for individuals. Teams can also develop it by examining who they are as a unit and how that unit functions.
How do we as a team tend to organize around an opportunity or challenge like this? And is that the right way to do it? Do we as a team have collective blind spots? How do we take a step back and make ourselves more aware? But asking the right questions often means different questions, curious questions, questions of, yeah, but why do we do it that way again? On a team, sometimes what you learn and do differently is in collaboration with others. So now the self-awareness isn't just self-awareness of myself as an individual. It's also a collective self-awareness of the team. what are we good at as a team? Who is good at what? How do we as a team tend to swarm a problem like this? And is that the right way to do it?
What do the data look like around deliberate calm? Are leaders more effective or employees more productive?
First of all, we actually have our own study that we've done because we also train leaders in these skills. And we've rolled a program out with an organization with a couple of thousand of leaders and a control group. So it was really a great setting to measure evidence. And what we found is, in a synthesized way, leaders showed not only self-perceptions, but also evaluated by others, 3 times better adaptive behaviors and outcomes.
From how good of a leader they were, how productive they were, how inspiring they were, the quality of their decisions, a whole bunch of things.
And also 7.5 times improvement in well-being versus the control group. So that is already amazing data. The other data points is that we basically know that learning agility is the number 1 driver of leader success and potential, ahead of IQ, personality-related EQ, and ability-related EQ and job experience.
If I'm practicing deliberate calm and I serve as a mentor to 12 people in my company and I can role model that behavior, I imagine that the effects can be exponential.
Our belief is that there's a tipping point that helps a whole organization improve on these things. And part of it is because the skills involved, when you start applying them at a team level, start creating a foundation of things that when they all come together, create, when you see it in action, a bit of magic.
Building that foundation takes time and practice.
We're not prescriptive about what would be good because everybody individually should find out what works for them. But there are many ways. Yeah, I mean, the word corporate athlete sometimes comes up in our conversations. It's the same as anybody who wants to train for a marathon or for some high-level sports. You don't do that overnight. You practice.
How important is it to see deliberate calm as a process more so than a destination?
It is always a process. It's a journey. And by the way, I want to emphasize there is a time and place for everything. You know, even though I have been one of the co-authors on this book, I am not continuously a 10 out of 10 on deliberate calm myself. And we know from research that we can continue to learn and develop actually after our 80s. So there is a lot of hope and there is a lot of opportunity. If you pay attention to it and if you're intentional and you really want to grow and develop, you can absolutely enjoy that lifelong learning experience for a very long time. I would say well beyond our old age.
Deliberate Calm is available for purchase on November 29th, online and in stores.
Thanks so much for listening to the McKinsey podcast. I'm Lucia Rahili.
And I'm Roberta Fusaro.
Find us on McKinsey.com. We'll have a transcript of this episode up shortly.
And check out the McKinsey Insights app, where you can find this podcast and other helpful content updated daily.
And if you would, we'd love for you to leave a rating and a review.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.